You know who else is a big boy? Get this figure and more at Hobby Link Japan, and don't forget about that merch. Hey, my name is Jobby, and what better way to welcome in the new year than with this rotting insect corpse? Sums up my life. The Digivolving Spirit's Atlur Kabuterimon, aka MegaKabuterimon, is the sixth Digivolving Spirits figure, and I guess I'm in this for the long run, huh? Now I remember owning the original Digivolving Kabuterimon toy way back before the Doubtland death, and that figure was one of the best looking in the line due to the lack of kibble between modes. While this figure doesn't digivolve into the same Digimon, the lack of kibble is still present. It's amazing! And if you don't know what kibble is, check out the description for my other Digivolving Spirits reviews. You'll know what kibble is the hard way. But if you look carefully, there is a bit of kibble peeking out of the shell. It's actually not too bad since it's at the bottom of his back. I mean, you wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't told you, right? And while we're at his shell, it is satisfyingly smooth for the most part, but these obvious dots get in the way of my satisfaction. Pretty impressive that a couple of dots is the most obvious bit of kibble on this figure. Damn it, Bandai, why you always gotta put dead babies on your back? You could forget about lifting his wings for a flying pose. That comes later, actually. As for the actual design of MegaKabuterimon, I never noticed how grotesque and spooky it actually is. Probably because who gives a shit about MegaKabuterimon? I've got other Digimon to analyze all day. This skeletal chest and exposed muscle tissue is actually made of die-cast metal. Here's the back of the box to confirm that I'm not wrong, even though it doesn't make much sense for exposed muscle to be made of metal. I guess it's... what the fuck? What makes a little more sense is the die-cast metal horn. And of course the horn is connected to this disgusting head sculpt. Is it just me? Unfortunately, there's barely any articulation here, which is a huge step down from the other figures of this line. The most you get is a hinge joint here and an opening mouth. After 6 figures, it's obvious that articulation is not a priority with this line, but a ball joint at the head is all I needed, Bandai, come on. Anyway, you get a ball joint at the shoulder can shift, ball joint at the bicep, can rotate, double bend at the elbow, ball joint at the wrist, ball joint at the second pair of shoulders, bend at the elbow, and a mid-arm ball joint. Nothing at the waist, ball joint at the hips, allows for rotation, can move back that far, beautiful spread. These flaps of flesh can shift, thigh rotation, bend at the knee, ankle moves up, ball joint here, can rotate, and a reverse toe bend. Not the most articulated thing in the world, but the tight joints and the die-cast metal make them feel really nice to handle. Unless the figure falls on his face, that feels like shit. Fortunately, you get a stand, and that gently cups his nuts. This definitely helps the figure stand up, but it limits the articulation even more. You don't really need this in most situations, just don't handle the figure like a dead baby. Moving on to our size comparisons. Here's Digivolving Spirits War Greymon, MegaKabuterimon, Diaboromon, Angelmon, Madakagatzilla Prime, and Alphamon. MegaKabuterimon looks great with all of his fellow Digimon, especially considering the relative lack of kibble. But it gets even better when he transforms, digivolves. And here we have Tentomon! I'll never do that again. This is hands down, tits out, the best cute mode of the Digivolving Spirits line. Not only is it virtually kibble-free, it's also incredibly show-accurate. The simple and clean transformation does not compromise the proportions of this mode at all. He feels like an actual character, as opposed to an adorable paperweight. Even with the lack of an actual face, he's still packed with personality thanks to this ball joint at the head. Where the f was this in the other mode? The only way this head sculpt could get any better is if he had an opening mouth. That's kinda gross, actually. I also would have liked it if Bandai could find a way to— what, son of a bitch! We were this close to perfection. This close. Look, I really like the opening wings. Gives the figure an extra degree of articulation. But would it have chafed Bandai's nuts to include an extra layer of wings to cover that shit up? Well, it can't bother me if I just ignore it, right? Works for my other problems. With the shell closed up and the demons at bay, I find this figure even more satisfying to hold than the MegaKabuterimon mode. But he does tend to fall over due to the junk in the trunk. That's where the stand comes in. Again, but this time you get an alternate crotch cradle, put it in this hole, and that forces him to have some terrible posture. You don't really need this, just as long as you pose him properly. Ball joint at the shoulder, limited rotation, shoulder can shift, rotation at the elbow, bend at the elbow, rotation at the claw, and we covered the second pair of arms already. Ball joint at the hips, thigh rotation, knee rotation, a bend, and rotation at the calf. I'm telling you, that ball joint at the head does a lot to make this figure so expressive, despite his fairly limited articulation. And adding to Tentomon's charm is how small he actually is. Here's Digivolving Spirits Agumon, Gabumon, Karamon, Gatomon, Madagagatzilla Prime, and Dorumon. Overall, this figure is awesome. But if MegaKabuterimon had that ball joint at the head, he could have easily been Eiffel Towered. As it is, I'd still highly recommend this guy for any nostalgic Digimon fans. All of you Tentomon fans have been blessed. And if you're joining me in collecting all these Digivolving Spirits, why don't you head on over to Hobby Link Japan? The partnership actually worked out, thank God. Not only is Tentomon in stock, they also have the brand new Magna Angemon figure, and holy shit, this review was way overdue. I guess I know what I'm doing sometime next year. And speaking of next year, I hope you guys have a good one. You go ahead and make those resolutions and never follow through with them. As for me, I'll continue reviewing toys on a hopefully more consistent schedule. One video a week at least. And I'll see you next time. Next year. The future looks bright. Yes, the future is bright as you say. You're not making as much revenue as you used to.